Well, churches across the country have been fighting for the right to congregate during the coronavirus pandemic, and in many cases defying state and local governments who have tried to shut them down in the name of public safety. Well, Pastor John MacArthur of the Grace Community Church just outside of Los Angeles is being threatened with jail time and daily fines of up to $1,000 for continuing to hold services. He and the church have hired 2 attorneys, including Trump campaign legal advisor Jenna Ellis, who we've had on this show many times, to fight back. Well, here's how Pastor MacArthur opened his service last Sunday. Take a listen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to welcome you to the Grace Community Church Peaceful Protest.
All right. Well, people are pretty happy there. Pastor MacArthur is joining us now. Good to see you, Pastor MacArthur.
Oh, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, Pastor, the California health officials and politicians say that this has to be done to ensure the safety of citizens. What are you doing to ensure the safety of your flock?
We're not in the medical business. We let people make those decisions for themselves. But what is particularly telling is that the statistics in California indicate that about 0.02% of people will have a terminal experience from COVID. So you have a 99.98 chance of having no lasting effect if you do get the virus. People are adults. They can make their own decision. That is a pretty low risk. So we're concerned to let the church be the church. We're not trying to prevent people from catching the flu. We're trying to prevent people from facing divine judgment and eternal punishment. The only way we can present to them the answer, the solution to that, the escape from that is in the gospel of Christ. So of all times for a church to meet, we should be meeting now when people have been given the reason to be afraid, even if it's not legitimate.
Pastor MacArthur, just to press you a little bit, I think of the second commandment that says, love your neighbor as yourself. What if one of your congregates gets the coronavirus and then goes out and spreads it to someone else? How do you handle that?
Well, I probably wouldn't even know about it since most people are asymptomatic. I may have had it myself. I don't know. We don't have anybody in our congregation. Last Sunday, we had 7,000 people here. We don't have anybody in our congregation that I know of that has COVID. We haven't had anybody in a hospital. So I don't know that anything could be determined as to the origin of that since it's gone through the population probably since last October. So I don't know how they could pin it on the church. But as far as our current church family is concerned, I don't know of anyone who's ill with that.
Pastor, here's what I don't get. And I'm Catholic. We're supposed to, according to our belief, attend church every day. But the Catholic Church and most of the bishops around the country have made provisions for people to go online and worship in that way. Why not just do it that way where people can get the spiritual nourishment, but not potentially endanger folks, right? So I get your point that you may not know, but it's the potential thereof. It's kind of like when you're feeling sick just during flu season and they tell you, please don't come to work because it's not just you, it's you getting everyone else sick. So why not just say to everyone, stay home. I know you guys have a very robust online presence and get the word of and the gospel through online methods.
Look, I've had a lot of colds in my life, and I've had a lot of flu bugs in my life. My whole life is lived in the middle of a population who could give me whatever they've got. That's just life in the world. So we started out, however, with online only. We emptied our 3,000-seat auditorium, and I preached to nobody week after week. We translated it into 4 languages, sent it around the world. That was great. But about the 5th or 6th week, people started coming back. We didn't announce that. We didn't say anything. A few came back and more came back, and pretty soon there were hundreds, and then there were thousands, and they kept coming and coming. We put a tent in the parking lot, and we said we're going to be outdoors. We spread the chairs a little bit. We put chairs in the patio with a screen outdoors so they could sit out in this large plaza area, and they kept coming and kept coming, and we opened the auditorium, and they filled every space there. Then they went into the family center and filled that. These are people coming to church because they want to be in church. And this is not an event. This is not a spectator sport. This is a communion of people who are intimately connected by their life in Jesus Christ who want to be together. The health department told us we couldn't allow any hugs or handshakes. And they also told us that if we followed the rules, anybody who got within a 6-foot perimeter for more than 15 minutes would have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. Well, that's absolutely a death knell for even meeting, no matter what the circumstances were. So the onerous requirements made it impossible for us to gather with a congregation like this, who desperately wanted to be together, didn't any longer believe the narrative. And one footnote: for 6 months, we've had no Sunday school for 1,000 little children, where we teach them the Word of God for 4.5 hours on Sunday, and the parents were ready to bring them back, and they'll be back this Sunday.
All right. Well, enjoyed having you, Pastor MacArthur. Continuing fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be with you guys.
All right. Well, joining us now is another California pastor who actually scored a small victory in the court this week. The pastor of Godspeed Calvary Chapel, Rob McCoy, has been holding indoor services since May. And earlier this week, a judge denied a Ventura County request to close down the church and hold Pastor McCoy in contempt of the court. But he's not off the hook just yet. There is still a hearing scheduled for August 21st. We now welcome Pastor McCoy. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Hey, Sean.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
All right. Well, Pastor McCoy, I want to read for our audience something the Ventura County Superior Court judge actually said about this situation and you opening your doors. He said, on a scale of 1 to 10, of the most immediate irreparable harm possible, this is a 10. He goes on to talk about it. But Pastor McCoy, you've had your doors open since May, like we mentioned, most people not wearing masks. My question to you, why not just require masks in the service?
Well, first of all, we've done 134 live stream episodes with no less than 7 doctors and 2 psychologists. We've looked at the mask data. We've looked at the social distancing data. We've looked at all of it. We have ionization machines, UV lights in our air system. There's no merit for the masks. There's no merit for the social distancing. And our death rate is 1/100th of 1%. In a county of 850,000 people. And in our zip code where our church exists, 91320, last 14 days, this is the county numbers, vcemergency.com, we've had 9 positive cases, the lowest of any residential area in all the county. And we are at 10. That just doesn't make sense. We're here to worship. How do you sing with a mask on? How do you worship? How do you have community? We're not a threat to the community. And you had asked the question earlier about loving thy neighbor. You know, what about the people, the spouses that are being abused and the children that are being abused, forced to quarantine with their abusers, and the 65% of the businesses that will never reopen in our county? What about them? That's our neighbors. We love them. We're contending against a draconian government on behalf of our neighbors. We love them. And that's how we're showing our love.
Pastor McCoy, aside from tending to your flock there in California, you were also elected as a member of the city council. But the question I have for you, the interesting is, you stepped down just a short time ago. Why not have stayed on the city council to really have an impact and a voice in some of these issues that are now affecting your church?
That's a great question. Our council, and as I served on that council as the mayor during the mayor pro tem during the Borderline shooting, when we lost 12 of our young people, the state has taken our autonomy. And our council and our county is being forced by funding to submit to these draconian measures by the governor. And I knew that my council members had enough on their plate. And as I'm contending with him suppressing First Amendment rights, the governor, I didn't want to impose that on my colleagues who I have great respect for. They didn't need that hassle. They didn't have to censure me every week. And that's been since April 4th, and I'm still open.
One final question to you, Pastor McCoy. I know that people like Andy Stanley are saying that they're closing their doors until then. What do you say to pastors like this have chosen not to open and just staying to this online form?
Well, we all rise and fall before one master, and that's the decision they're going to make. But I will say this, that our church has been packed with people who would never darken the doors of a church, skaters and surfers that have lost their beaches, and their skate parks have been filled with sand by the government. And they showed up, and I told them on Sunday, I said, your streams of liberty have dried up, so you went further upstream to find the source, and you've come to that source. Liberty is not a man-made idea, it's a God idea. And the churches have to start proclaiming that, because in a constitutional republic, this is the great gift of America, is liberty, and a government's going to want to take that. I'm in politics, and politicians are actors performing a script written by the audience. And if you give them your liberty, they'll take it. So we have to push back. This is we the people. We're the authority. So let's push back.
Pastor McCoy, so great to have you. Thank you for updating us on your situation. Like I said to Pastor MacArthur, keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you, both of you. Bless you.
Right. We're living in an age where people constantly seek approval on social media and are told if they just dig deep within themselves, they will find it. Well, Allie Beth Stuckey calls it a rampant narcissism. She writes a book about it, and we're going to talk to her about it next.